Hi, Tim.
And I'm still playing with buttons right now.
Okay, I just saying hi. I just unmuted myself, so.
Yeah, I got you. You're really hard to hear, though.
Let me turn the light off first of all. That might help you see me better. Didn't help any. That's a little better. All right, let's see if I can find volume.
Yeah, you might have to get really up close and personal with us there, because I've got mine turned all the way up and I can barely hear you.
All right, what'd I just do? Here we go. Never had that problem before. Wonder what's going on.
I don't know. Maybe it's just me too. Could just be me.
Well, I brought it in closer, so you really get to see me.
Yeah.
Get to see all my pores.
Like I said, it could just be my computer too.
Lack of makeup.
Let's see. Now talk to me again.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I'll back up a little bit then. Let me see if I can make me not be so dark.
So nice outside before it starts raining, or at least it's here. It's like too nice a day to be inside.
No, Shaquana's out cleaning gutters right now.
Well, it might not be a nice enough day to clean gutters, but.
Well, she's decided she has to have all this stuff done before Mike comes home.
Gotcha.
It's not necessarily have to stuff, but she has decided it's have to stuff. Okay, that's a little better. Oh, okay, put that in here. That's that bed wedge.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
I've unmuted everybody just until we get started, so feel free to speak up. Connie, how are you?
I can hear you. Good. Turn around to get the sun out of my eyes.
Were you in your car?
Oh yeah, you know, because I live out in the country, so I have to come someplace where the signal is good. So I'm sitting at the Y.
Gotcha. Marianne, how are you?
I'm good, but I can hear everybody fine.
Well, then it's just my computer. As long as everybody can hear me fine and hear Kathy fine, and we'll be good to go.
All right, thank you, dear. Can everybody hear me okay?
I can.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Good afternoon, Michelle.
How are you?
And are those your dogs? Hi, Janice.
Hi, Kathy. How are you?
I'm okay, hanging in.
Hi, Timmy.
Hi, JLo. How are you?
I had to go buy a new washing machine.
Well, that's exciting.
Oh, my checkbook didn't think it was exciting. Especially since I had a load of towels in there and it wouldn't like drain the water out or spin them.
Ew. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's no fun.
they'll deliver it next week.
Yeah, we're still paying on our new one that we bought a year ago.
Yeah, I just paid it.
Get your soda. Go get your soda.
Well, hey guys, we got a few more minutes before you can start. I think everybody said they can hear me fine. Right now I've got everybody unmuted, but once we get started, so we're not all talking, because again, I should have, you know, when everybody gets on that signed up, we should have close to 30 to 35 people on here again. So we'll just mute everybody. If you will see in the middle of your screen, if you were on last week, the softball, but if you weren't, there's a chat box, a chat option. If you click on that, that's where we'll take our questions, and we'll try to answer them as we go through different sections and stuff of the agenda. So I don't know, well, I guess I'm using a different computer now, but I'm kind of having trouble hearing. I don't know whether that's my connection. So I will do my best, but as long as everybody is hearing each other, I think we're okay. I think it's just something on my end that's going on. But we'll give everybody a couple of more minutes to go ahead and get on here, and then we'll get started.
Tim, I don't have the agenda in front of me because I couldn't print it, so you'll have to guide us through.
Okay.
Hi, Michelle.
How are you?
I'm all right. Hey, Tim, I'm trying to write down all the names I see
Okay.
so we can track them.
Yeah, I've got a list too, but I'm obviously, I know there's some people, I see some people on here that.
Who is the person who shows up as owner?
That is Kathy Whitmire.
Kathy Whitmire? Okay.
man, I look as rough as I feel right now.
Hi, Brenda.
Hey guys, good to see you all.
Okay, so I've got a couple minutes after 2 o'clock my mind. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and mute the group so we don't have a bunch of people talking over each other or any background. Again, if you took part in this last week, we'll take all the questions over in the chat box, so you can just type them in over there. If you're new, is this first time, or if you're familiar with Zoom, you'll know there's a chat option when you just run your mouse or whatever that pointer thing's called. Over there's a chat option, so that's where we'll take your questions, and we'll get started there. I'm gonna go ahead and mute. So Kathy, I'm going to unmute you as soon as I find you.
Thank you.
All right. So right now it should just be me and you, Kathy,
Okay.
that are speaking.
Yeah, we got a lot of that background noise on.
We have speaking privileges, I guess. So, well, first off, thank you guys for joining us here in coaches training round 2 via Zoom in the new world, as we like to call it. Hopefully, you guys, it's a beautiful day where I'm at right now before the rain's supposed to come. So we'll try not to take up too much of your time this afternoon to get that. What we're going to do is, guys, again, I'm going to reference back if you were there on the softball call last week where we did the same thing. We'll just kind of go through the agenda. We'll try to stay on that task and much there. I have Kathy Lowry here to our commissioner in BOCCE to help us guide us through the BOCCE rules as best we can. We're going to touch base on really any rules changes that have happened between now and the last year. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to type them up. We will get to them as soon as possible, or as soon as we get through that. Having said all that, you guys, to start out with, I just wanted to go over and make sure you guys got the forms. We'll still use the same forms this year, the doubles form and the entry form. None of that's going to change as well, any part of that. Kathy, do you want to touch base a little bit on the skills when you're filling out your forms, things they can do, tips, hints to make things, with every sport that we have, you have some trouble with, for people just starting out with understanding the scoring procedure. So Kathy, can you talk a little bit about that for them, please?
Yeah, first of all, make sure that you have a tape measure that measures in centimeters. Otherwise, you're going to have to go online and convert all your scores, all your measurements to centimeters. It actually makes the scoring more precise. So please, please, please use centimeters. Basically, all you need to do, you place the polina at 30 feet and have the athlete roll all 8 balls, and you measure the closest 3. You do not have to measure all 8 balls, just the closest 3. And then you do that again for the 40-foot, and then you do that again for the 50-foot. And your Q score is just all those measurements added together. Again, do not measure or even waste your time measuring all 8 balls, just the closest 3 at each time they throw. If they move the polina during this process, you just place the polina back where it was. If they move any other balls during this process, that's fine, they can. You just leave them where they roll to. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? That's pretty much it. It's that simple. You don't have to do anything else. There is a video, Tim, it's on the website still?
Yeah, there's a video with that on our website, the somo.org website. If you go through the coaches pages, it's on there. There's Kathy's produced a bocce training video. I would encourage you all to watch it. If for nothing else, to watch Kathy and watch her work. It's phenomenal.
No, thanks. When you're measuring, you're technically supposed to measure from the side, like if this is your polina, from the side center of the polina to the side center of the ball. Of course, when we are at competition, that when we use the washers, that kind of poses a bit of an issue, but I'll get into that later. But I don't even have a ball with me. I should have brought one. But again, you just measure from wherever the polina is and your ball is, you measure from side center to side center. Okay? My thing is, and what I tell the volunteers day of, if that's something they forget, it's not a die hard, I'm gonna get you in all kinds of trouble. As long as you're measuring it consistently the same way every single time, then your measurements are not going to be that far off from that procedure, as long as you're doing it the exact same way every single time. Does that make
Kathy,
sense?
we got a question here of what scores do you add together? You want to take that?
You're only measuring the 3 closest balls. So you're going to add those measurements together. That's your scores. Okay, the measurement from the 3 closest balls to the polina. And
Is that for each destination, 30 feet, 40 feet, and 50 feet?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we have any more questions before we leave the roster and the doubles forums?
Make sure on your roster, if you have an exception form, which we'll get into what you can use exception forms here a little bit later. But if you have one, make sure it is on your original roster, and make sure that if you have a ramp player, that is on your original roster. Okay, we have to know that well in advance in order to division correctly, and to have the materials we needed for any type of modifications or anything like that. Okay, we good?
Okay.
All right.
I think we're good with the roster forms and the paperwork side of things. I know that Kathy just touched a little bit on divisioning. So, I will cover that real quick. The divisioning is with bocce is just, very similar to what we do with everything else. Obviously, you've got age, and then your Q scores factoring in there and everything. So it's pretty straightforward with bocce, as opposed to having like a team sport where you might watch a team play and they might play better than their score, or you were there. So, the main thing we're going to do is focus on gender and age when we're divisioning. Remember that you're athletes, and we're not, since bocce, no offense to you bocce people, is not exactly a physical sport, the physicality involved in it of, say, a basketballer there. Remember, your athletes can be placed one age level above what they are. So juniors can play seniors, seniors can play masters, masters can play senior masters. We are much more inclined to do that in a sport like bocce in order to create competition, to create 2, 3, and 4 person brackets or team brackets to make it a little easier for us to work with and make a little more competition, as opposed to we're much more inclined to do that with a sport like bocce, to bump an athlete up an age level than we are, saying, a basketball or a softball, unless we have to. But, so keep that in mind. Let your parents, your family members, your assistant coaches know that, I understand the optics of having an 8-year-old and a 16-year-old out there on the court at the same time, but ability level and something like bocce is something we feel we can handle with that. So again, we're not going to go out of our way to do that, but if we need to make more competition for the athletes, to make it a better experience for them, we will do that, and they can be put up an age level.
especially on the area level where you don't have as many athletes to division. Another point to make on the rosters is when you are putting alternates, make sure that their Q score is similar or higher than those that are on that team. So you can basically you cannot substitute a player on a doubles or a team with someone who has a lower Q score. It has to be the same, around the same area or a little higher. And if you've read the SOI rules, you've seen that. We're not going to read all the SOI rules to you. That would be rather lengthy. But yeah, that's just a point to make when you're putting alternates on your rosters.
All right. Well, I think that it's a good point. If we don't have any more questions on that, that was kind of a nice segue. I'm sure you planned that, Kathy. We're going to segue into the rules. Everybody that should have received a copy of the latest and greatest SOI rules. Again, which makes BOCCE easy for us. There's not, really the only adaptation that we've done here in Missouri is allow them to play singles and doubles events. So that's not going to change here in the near future, as far as I can tell. I will tell you guys that our BOCCE numbers are getting to the point. It's something we're going to have to consider. Maybe taking a stance like bowling. They're going to be able to participate in one. Kind of going to get off my kind of segued into something that would be later. But for example, at this year's outdoor games, we're going to try to play a round of doubles on that Thursday night out at Blair Oaks High School. So what that looks like, we're not sure. It's either going to be the regulation doubles or the unified doubles are going to take place Thursday night of outdoor because our numbers are getting to the point. We really pretty much take up an entire football facility, and we're kind of running, but we're gonna do our best to. Well, we're definitely gonna take everybody this year that we can and would like to go. But those are the type of things, just to be upfront with you guys here in the near future, that we're probably, as BOCCE continues to grow in popularity, we're probably going to have to get close to a bowling situation of limiting them to a singles or a doubles event. In order just to work with our facilities and stuff. But that's we can discuss any questions you have on that later. I kind of went off on another tangent with that, but sorry. Just you guys should have received a copy of the rules, the SOI rules. I'm just going to let Kathy touch base on just some main things to remember when it comes to BOCCE and I think there was one change year over year that we didn't catch till late in the game last year, but we're going to implement this year. So Kathy, you want to touch base on those, what they are?
Yeah. And basically, because like I said, you guys can read, you can read through it. I'm going to touch base on the one new rule change and then just the things I see from year to year that we consistently have some issues with. The main rule change is the 3 attempt rule on throwing the Polina. Whoever wins the advantage throws the Polina and then the first ball of each frame. If that athlete cannot get the Polina between the 30 and the 50-foot lines, then the other team has one opportunity to throw that Polina. If they cannot get it there, now here's the change. The change is it used to be that you placed the ball center court 50 foot. It is now center court 40 foot. It's actually been in the SOI rules for a while, but we just hadn't gotten the word out to everybody, so we weren't implementing it, but we are now. So it's actually a more fair rule than it was before. So again, with the 3 attempt rule with the Polina, if it's not made by an athlete, then it will be placed center court 40 foot. Other things that I want to hit on very quickly, again, make sure you're measuring in centimeters. Let's see, make sure if you need an exception form, you're turning those in with your rosters. Coaching must be done outside of the BOCCE court. Okay, so if you've got an athlete that has a unified partner, and they're talking things over and they're strategizing whatever they're supposed to, they need to. But once a player steps into that court, you cannot communicate with them. Nobody can communicate with them. Okay. We see this a lot. And now we'd understand that there's times where we have several athletes where someone has to be out there and they have to say, okay, now pick up the ball. Okay, now, you know, we understand that. To us, that's not coaching. Coaching would be telling them where to stand, okay, and how they should angle themselves or whatever to throw the ball, okay, or telling them to throw it lightly or telling them to throw it hard or those sorts of things. That's coaching. Those things we cannot be doing once they're in the court. You can talk to them all you want to outside the court, just don't do it inside. Like I talked to you already, substitutions, you might, that was something that we don't have a lot of substitutions, but sometimes it happens. Now, if you have a team that is short a player, according to the SOI rules, that is a forfeit. So if you have a 4-man team or a doubles and they're short a player, Tim and I might have to discuss if we want to change that for SOMO, but according to SOI, that is a forfeit. They cannot play. That team cannot play. Mechanical aids like the cones for the visually impaired, that sort of thing. Make sure, number one, that they're on your original roster, okay? And we need to know, because like I know we have several athletes that it differs on how the volunteers need to stand with those aids. Sometimes they need to bend down. I know of one particular athlete in this area that she can't see the volunteer unless this volunteer is standing straight up. Okay. So just, Kathy, I know one of your athletes, they know all about how to do there and how to tell the volunteers how to use their mechanical aids. Talk to your athletes, make sure they know, so that if a volunteer, if we didn't get to that volunteer and tell them what's needed, that your athlete can communicate that if possible to their volunteer on their court. Proper attire. You all know jeans aren't supposed to be. We're not supposed to be wearing jeans. Actually, a proper attire for BOCCE is slacks and a polo. Now, of course, we're not expecting that. Sometimes the shorts and the t-shirt's fine. But as you, especially last year, it got really hot down on that football field. Jeans are way too hot. Okay, and so there just needs not to be, we're going to start calling people on that, and no jeans. Okay, and make sure closed-toed shoes. I don't think that's been an issue, but you may need to make sure at your practices that your athletes are not coming to practice in sandals, because yeah, that you don't want any broken toes. It hurts when you get hit by a bocce ball.
Yeah, I'm just going to plug in. I know we've got a couple of questions here to get to, which will cause us to backtrack. I am going to plug in on some of the things that Kathy has touched base on. I think her and I, within the next week, will have a discussion about the person short team rule, and whether or not we're going to forfeit. We'll get that out to your area directors as soon as possible. Or within the next week, we can do that.
Yeah, sorry.
I do really
want. I forgot about that yesterday.
What?
When we talked yesterday, I forgot about that.
That's all right. It just gives us a chance for her and I to discuss on how we feel, what we want to do with that. I do also want to hammer home the proper attire. Again, athletic shorts, t-shirts, we're fine with that. You know, we're back in the same place at Blair Oaks High School, and even in, you know, it's going to get hot. Jeans are not going to be acceptable, and we're not going to feel bad for sending your athletes home. We feel we've given you enough notice. Kind of been, you know, it's kind of our own fault letting it get lax a little bit and not wanting to be the jerks when they're standing there, but it's kind of morphed into its problem. So we're going to, you know, through fault of our own, obviously, not wanting to be the jerks about it, but we're going to rein that back in, you know, starting here with these competitions. So please make sure your athletes have proper proper shoes on, are not playing in jeans, we're not gonna bend on that one again. So right now, I just want to touch base on a couple questions we've had thrown out there. Diane said she thought they could only do one regulation and one unified event. Let me make that clear to my point of where we were headed to, where I believe we're headed to if our numbers continue to grow. Yes, currently athletes can participate in one regulation, one unified event. They can do the two events. I think if our numbers are growing, we're going to get close to, Kathy and I have talked about, when that is, we don't know yet, but depending on what this year looks like, maybe limiting that down to one event, whether it's a singles or a doubles. The two events, it's going to alleviate a lot of pressure on our time constraints working with the high school that we're at now, and it being football season, if this Thursday night deal works. So that's the reason we're really pushing that.
Well, and
trying
guys,
to get
you
one
all
of those
know,
doubles things knocked out. Go ahead, Kathy.
that's okay, sorry. Like our main holdup at our state games is waiting for those athletes that are doing two things. We're waiting for them to finish their first one so that they can go do the second one. And that is our primary holdup of when we can't move forward. We've got empty courts, and you're wondering, why do we have empty courts and nobody's on them? That's why. Is because the players are still playing on a different court. So this is when we have so many people, we've got to start looking at different ways to do it.
All right, we've got another question here of, would an aid situation be a reason for an exception sheet to turn in? Diane, let me find you. All right, Diane, I'm going to unmute you because I'm not really sure I understand your question.
Well, Kathy, you were talking about the, the cones or, working with the volunteers to get them placed in the right, do it in the right way that the athletes need.
Right.
So my question there is, if they are limited in terms of getting to get that information, be able to express that, is that a situation where maybe you would fill out an exceptions report?
Yes.
Okay.
And we've got to be a little more diligent about making sure those exception reports are with the rosters, so that when that roster goes out, those volunteers know. Because a lot of times I've had to go back and hunt down the exception form. So I think if we can be a little more diligent in making sure those exception forms are with the rosters, that would help a lot.
Sounds good. Thank you, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Okay, guys, one other thing I'm going to tag off of what Kathy's been talking about with the roles. We were discussing the low motor. Her and I were discussing yesterday the low motor side of things, the ramp, more specifically the ramp, the people that need ramps to participate in BOCCE, and how we wanted to handle them. I would like to. As Kathy was saying yesterday, we don't have enough. I think we had 2 participants last year.
Yeah.
But if you have that many, what we've typically in the past have thrown them in, quote, a regulation BOCCE division, let them play, and then they can, and then award them separately. What if we can all be in agreement, and you guys can answer my email, or we can just kind of, shoot me an email that says, if you're not opposed to waiving gender and age, because we're not talking about a large number, we can division those athletes that need the ramp or the lower motor, the lower functioning athletes together to give them a real true competition. I mean, they're smart enough to understand that when they roll it out there and they're not, with the ramp and they're not crossing half line, they're not going to score a point, and it's kind of pointless. And, it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of pointless for them to be out there. If my suggestion to that is if you have a low motor or low function, until we get numbers that, we can't handle, if we're just going to put them together, guys. And I think that's the fair enough and a better experience for them. Like I said, we were only dealing with two But that's better than them sitting there knowing they're not going to score a point for the entire game, and then we're going to turn around and hand them a gold medal. So I think that's a better way to go. If you have athletes that are on the lower functioning level or are needing the ramps, Kathy's got some suggestions. Maybe I wasn't familiar with them then. So Kathy's, when you're training them, some things to look for and the things to help them out when it comes to using those.
Just thinking about it for a little bit. The thing was, there's nothing that says that they can't, that they just have to just drop the ball on the ramp and let it go. It doesn't go very far usually that way. There's nothing that says they can't put a little push on it, give it a little momentum, but you have to train them to do that. And with the difference between bocce and bowling is they can decide where that ramp goes, okay? Because you can move around in that 10-foot area. So you have to train them to know where they want that ramp and to be able to communicate that to their aide or whoever is there to help them put the ramp up, you know what I'm talking about, move the ramp around or whatever. They have to be able to communicate that. So that's part of your training. So basically what I'm saying is you need to work with your athletes it's more than just them putting the ball on the ramp and letting it fall. You know, they really need to be trained on how to use their ramp to have an effective and to really be competitive, because they can be. They just have to be trained to do it. And if you have any other suggestions that I can pass around, if you got to come up with any ideas, let me know. You just shoot me an email and I'll shoot it out to everybody else.
Okay, we got a couple of questions here. All right, this is from Diana Niehaus at State. Do we need to call all the athletes down at once? Couldn't you fill the first heats, then maybe have a coach from each team down there to be in contact with their team in the stands to see when you call a few heats? If those athletes are available or not. If not, move on to the next ones. Not sure what Alyssa did at KC Metro last year, but it was so smooth and no one waited in staging. Well, I'm going to touch base a little bit on that, and then I'll let you fill in, Kathy. Diana, you know, we recognized some of that. We think we have a plan in place to make that a little more smooth. For example, guys, we're going to put 2 courts and knock out. If you're playing in a 4-team bracket at State this year, we're going to take all 4 athletes, put them on 2 courts, let them play their first game, and rather than send somebody back, we're going to knock the bracket out all at once. Okay, so winners are going to flip to one court, the losers are going to flip to the other court, and in theory, within an hour, we should have a 4-team bracket done. It will take us probably an hour and a half to do a 3-team bracket, but as opposed to having all those moving parts and filling and refilling, we think that's the best way to go. That came from some of our areas, as opposed to the way we've been doing it. Anything you would like to add to that, Kathy? Because I personally think that's going to solve a lot of a problem.
It will. April and I talked a lot because she does most of that. She does the staging for us at State. I'll be honest with you, I don't remember everything we talked about. So, but we were strategizing and trying to come up with ways to make it more streamlined. And I promise you that we are working on it and that we'll have something in place by the time we're able to do this at State.
And I think, Diana, just to touch base a little bit on the having them all down there. The reason we do that is so we can move them. You know, it might seem redundant, but we are in such a large area with the football field and all the extra places they could be. I think we're more concerned about trying to hunt people down to get through it, as opposed to them having to sit in staging all there. So I would assume we're probably going to do it that way. But if we come up with a better way, between now and then, we'll certainly give it a shot. Our next question we got here is, what kind of ramps are people using? I've seen us use at State the drainage pipe attached to a bowling ramp. Are there any kind of
PVC pipe cut in half attached to a bowling ramp? There was one other ramp, but I can't remember what it was last year. I haven't seen very many. I do know that at one point, and this was several years ago, the industrial arts teacher at Chrisman made me a ramp, but I don't know what happened to that. I mean, he really streamlined it and had his guys really working on it and everything. It's all made out of all PVC pipe, and it rotated and the whole bit. If I can get a hold of him, we could probably get the plans for that. But Tim and I need to sit down and probably talk about what a ramp should look like, and what are the dimensions? Are we gonna allow it to be higher or lower, or Tim and I, that's something Tim and I need to discuss. We haven't gotten that far. We don't have this very many ramp players, so we really haven't. Kathy and I were supposed to be talking on that a few years ago, and it never kind of came to fruition. So we'll see what we can come up with.
Okay.
Hey, Kathy, yeah, send those.
Yeah, Kathy Whitmire. Yeah, if you just want to do a reply all to those emails that I sent out, send it, because I was real glancing over to see. I can also do some research, see if we have some, if there's some BOCCE specific ramps on the market and what kind of cost that might be, what we might be looking at, similar to a bowling ramp. We'll try to get those out to you in the next week or two. Do we have any more questions on rules? Again, guys, we haven't made. If you were
I
on the
just briefly
softball call,
went
this
through
wasn't
them,
like.
guys. If you have any specific, real specific questions, shoot me an email. That's fine. I'll be more than happy to answer any of them.
Yeah, we're not doing, unlike softball this week, we're not doing a lot of reinventing the wheel, so to speak. So this pretty straightforward. We've gone over the clothing, the training and competition. Again, we've kind of gone through a little bit, and I'll touch base on it again. God willing, we're all back to somewhat normal in July. That's kind of when I'm thinking we're going to be able to start our competition side of things at the area level. So, obviously you're going to have your area competition, and then state, guys, we're going to do our best to accommodate all of you all and those that want to come, realizing the fact that we don't have, that we haven't had 2 state events this year. So I can tell you we'll do our best, but just the touch from the BOCCE standpoint, where we're going to play a Thursday night, probably in the neighborhood of between 6:30 and 7 o'clock, play to about 9:30, try to knock out one of those doubles, whether it's regulation or unified. Also, like you guys will not be, you won't be charged anything extra if you have to come down on Thursday night and stay the night. There won't be an extra night on your assessment fee from that standpoint. We'll do that on Thursday night. Those that play Thursday night, we will do our best, depending on their, not to make you turn around and play at 8 o'clock in the morning, Friday morning, as we start again the next round of BOCCE there at Blair Oaks. You might play at 9, but you won't play at 8. We'll do our best not to do that as well. And that's going to kind of look from the BOCCE standpoint. We'll get done middle of the afternoon, like we've done. Actually be done a little earlier than we have in the past. Again, we're up against a football game, and if you're familiar with where we're playing at, football is God at Blair Oaks, and they're very good at it, but they're also a great place to work with, and so they are very accommodating and letting us in. Yes, Connie Pato put in there, make sure to read your schedules. I would encourage all of you all to read your schedules. So we don't have some of the issues we had last year. Connie, I wasn't going to say anything. You're the one that brought it up on. So the last thing, guys, I think we've worked our way through. The last thing I just wanted to touch base again. We're still kind of, I know we're going to ease up a little bit next week, but there's still the social distancing side of things. I asked Kathy to come up with maybe some at-home training ideas or some things you can do, some alternatives. If you don't have a regulation BOCCE set, your athletes don't have some alternatives. So again, I'm going to turn it over to her, and she's got some ideas that you guys can send out to your athletes and maybe work with, as we kind of get back into the swing and the new normal of things.
I didn't come up with a whole lot, but it's like a main thing, if they've got a baseball, a softball, tennis ball, they can use any kind of ball. If any of you all have old croquet sets, they could use those. And just set a target that's 30 or 40 feet away and try to hit the target, and maybe move to different surfaces so that they have to adjust how they throw it. That's the biggest thing is getting the ball where you want it, and placing it and being able to throw it hard. Do I throw it hard? Do I throw it soft? Is my aim good? That sort of thing. So they can use about any ball. If they want to use something similar to play, I'm sure a lot of your athletes have the little bouncy balls, so they can use that. But they can use anything for a target. If they've got like a drive that's against a house, or they can set up some kind of barrier, they can learn on how to bank a shot or block. They could set up a target and learn how to place the ball to block the Polina, or practice getting it unblocked. Kathy's an expert at getting them unblocked when they're on the rail. So, so just things like that. Just the primary thing is being able to control your ball and put it and place it where you want it. And so if they just take it doesn't matter what kind of ball, but pick a target, make sure it's at least 30 feet away, and change your surface if you've got different ways of flat surfaces. And so they have to throw differently and adjust. That's the biggest thing right there. And if you guys did come up with any ideas of your own that have worked, shoot us an email so we can get it out to everybody else.
Okay, thanks, Kathy. We've got a question. Let's see. Does SOI, Special Olympics Center, have any kind of videos to see what BOCCE is for brand new coaches?
Probably. There are lots of Special Olympics videos on YouTube for BOCCE. You really just need to go to YouTube, and you can really pull up just about, there's lots of them from the different World Games or USA Games. So yeah, there's videos out there. You don't have to go to the SOI website. You can just get on YouTube.
Yeah, I was, while you were going through that, I was just off looking there through the resources thing at SOI, and no, they don't have any videos listed. Again, YouTube's a great resource. I'm learning how to build an animal structure off YouTube. So, I'm doing construction off YouTube right now in my free time. Also, guys, go to our website, thesoma.org. The coaches training for the BOCCE about doing the assessments. That's a great one as well. And Connie here is throwing out that there's several YouTube about ramp as well, about getting about the ramps. So if you guys are looking there, YouTube's a great resource right now. Another question we've got here is, does SOMO have a target date that we can start practice? As of right now, guys, we're still through the end of May, the May 31st. I have not seen anything that says we're off that. Even with, I would say we're gonna have a sports team meeting tomorrow with the headquarters staff, and we'll discuss what that might look at with the opening, the pseudo opening up of the state. So right now, the best thing I can tell you is, from a target date, June 1st would be a way to go. But if that comes earlier, I'm sure there will be an announcement come out. So keep checking your emails, your e-greetings that you get from our PR department that would have that. Another question I have, there's somewhere in the roster document, remind us to attach our exception forms to. Might be helpful as not. No, there is not. But that's duly noted, and that's something we can, that's a simple fix. We can add that as well. Thank you, Amanda.
Any other questions, guys? I said, if you think of something later, shoot one of us an email. If it's a rules question, shoot it to me. Tim's just going to turn around and resend it to me anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, if we don't have anything else, guys, that's gonna wrap it up. Thank you guys for coming on here. I want to thank Kathy for taking the time out to do this, especially just to let you know her husband Mike's been sick, and so keep those guys in your prayers. He's getting to come home on Thursday, so he does not have the COVID, but he's been sick nonetheless. So please keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you, Kathy, for taking time out in the middle of everything you've got going on to help us out here. Again, like Kathy said, you got any questions, anything you'd like, we've kind of got our own little group email thing going right here. If you think of some new training ideas, find some new stuff you want to share with the group, just get it out there to all of us or filter it through me, and I'll do that. So again, thank you guys, and you guys have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, guys.